welcome back to PHL Cup. I'm your host Manny, and today we have James. Hi, James. How we doing?
Hi, Manny. How are you doing?
I'm good. Um, so if you just let us know who you are, what you do, and how you got to the place where you're at.
Yeah, so my name is James Pishkin. I am an aspiring strength and conditioning coach. I got into this profession because when I was younger, I hurt myself kind of bad. My dad didn't really like doctors, and so I took it upon myself to kind of figure out what was going on with me. From there, I found a passion. Back in 2022, I found a mentor, Coach Adam Fight. He goes to Springfield College and he talks a lot at a lot of different conferences. But he kind of introduced me into the field of strength and conditioning, and from there, I kind of just pursued it. I saw it as a great opportunity to kind of utilize the people within my network. And I just kind of dove right in. So I started volunteering that year at Springfield College with the football team and Ultimate Frisbee team. I was waking up early. I was doing late lifts with Ultimate Frisbee for the club team, and I was having a bunch of fun. I just kept pursuing it and pursuing it. I was hungry for knowledge, read a lot, tried a lot of different things, and then I ended up falling in love with it, going to a bunch of different places. I did Springfield College for my 90-hour internship there. Went to a private sector facility for my 400-hour internship. Trained for life. Shout out to y'all. Y'all are great. And then I ended up going to the University of Louisville in my free time, starting early this year in January. Got back in May. Now I'm heading out to Fairfield University in about a month to do a 2-year GA position there.
Nice. How was Louisville? That I know that's I saw
Yeah.
your post from that. It's sick.
Dude, yeah, it was awesome. There's a ton of technology. The coaches, they have, they're all really smart, but they all kind of have their bread and butter, whether it's like speed, power development, strength, all of them just are really good at what they do. And so it was great to be able to kind of pick their brains and, having the technology on hand, having like Nord boards for hamstring testing. We got the force frame or the force deck from
Mm.
from them as well. And then we had the valve force decks as well. So we got a lot of testing done. I really got to understand like player load, their programming style, and it was really just a great opportunity to work with athletes at that level.
What was your sort of biggest takeaway from using all that equipment?
It's it's definitely helpful. I think it's important not to revolve your whole identity or your whole like way of coaching around that. Not every facility that you're going to go to is going to have technology at that caliber, but essentially it's just a tool, right? It helps us make better decisions. But there definitely are other ways to kind of get same data points in terms of what you're trying to accomplish without all that fancy stuff. So I mean, it's great to have it. It's really fun. The athletes love it, but at the end of the day, it's up to us to be resourceful and figure out ways to get what we need, whether we have it or not.
Yeah. What was the internship like for you, and how challenging was it? Obviously, having
Luckily,
just finished university to then going and doing some pretty high level coaching.
yeah. So, experience it was pretty interesting, right? So, there are times when I'm waking up early. There's times when I'm staying late. I mean, they don't really lift past like 6 o'clock. So by most days, I'm out by 7. In terms of like what it was like, they have fueling stations, they have a bunch of racks, they have all the equipment that you really need, right? It's nothing fancy. It's not like they have like a ton of machines in there, but they have the essentials. They have the barbells, they have the racks, they have sliders. Let's see what else they got. Med balls, they got bands, right? Like pretty much everything that you need to get like a good lift in, pull up bars, everything. So, I mean, the programming in itself wasn't super fancy. I mean, there was some stuff where you looked at it and you're like, okay, that's different. You ask them why they're doing it, and they give a solid reason, right? We're trying to trace this type of adaptation, and ultimately, two and two go together, and it makes sense, and you end up getting the adaptation you're going for. So, like, I wouldn't say it's necessarily super different in terms of what it means to be a coach, like at Springfield College, for example. But
Mm.
I feel like a lot of people, especially me, I thought going into the D1 level, especially at that level of Power Five, like it would be different. But at the end of the day, people are people, athletes are athletes. They're gonna get after it
Basics are
regardless.
basics.
Yeah, exactly. So like you're basically doing the same thing, but it's just with different people. And so I tried not to idolize people. I tried not to put them on a pedestal. I
Yeah.
tried to just do what I came to do. I feel like I did a good job at accomplishing that. But kind of realize where you're at, realize where they are at, and just understand that it's not that serious. But you still have a job to do.
100%. When I went to UW, I hadn't done any research. I didn't know who anyone was, which was a
Oh,
blessing because I just treated them like athletes.
yeah.
And I think it was a good thing because like you are right, like athletes are athletes. They're there to do a job, and we're just there to help and support where they need it. Can you talk a little bit about your sort of sport and background? And you mentioned your injury, how that then shaped everything else that came after.
Yeah, so honestly, when I was younger, this was maybe like ninth grade, I was just a huge couch potato. Played a bunch of games, didn't really do anything with my life. I was honestly a very sorry human being. It was kind of sad. But my friend Ross, he told me that I should try out for the volleyball team. We used to sit next to each other in our homeroom back in high school, and he was on the varsity team. He was pretty good. I saw him play a couple times. He loved it. I decided to go and try out, but we had like it was only a week of conditioning. Looking back, it made no sense what we were doing, but it definitely got us technically ready for the season. We were just doing so much that you know when you're playing for like maybe 5 to 20 seconds per play, you're going to last the whole game, right? I mean, it's not that hard, but the style was weird. Lots of high impacts, lots of repetitive stress on the body, and then that kind of caught up to me after a week. Completely being sedentary, and so I ended up getting just like repetitive stress injuries. My knees were banged up, my shins were just blown out. Super hard to walk. It hurt every single step I took. Ankles were trashed, and it honestly took me like a whole year to kind of get back to that. And so I kind of just like dove into the body, myofascial release, learned how to like massage, kind of found some friends that showed me how to do some strength training stuff. And then ultimately that kind of got me to where I'm at, where I just found like that passion of just wanting to help people. That's kind of, I think, how a lot of coaches start. We just want to help people. And I figured if I can help myself, then I can help others.
A lot of SSC coaches, especially, come from that injury background. You
Mm.
did mention that you were trying to go more the sort of PT route, and then you sort of stumbled onto this
Mm.
SSC. How was that different to what we do as SSC coaches?
So, I mean, for physical therapy, I was really lucky to have a really great experience at Tufts Medical Center when I was like 18. I didn't even think I was going to get that opportunity, but it was just a little internship program. Um, and it ended up in the radiology department actually. And so I was looking at a lot of x-rays, but then I would occasionally go down to the physical therapist. And so it was great kind of like seeing both sides of that coin in terms of like the injuries that these people have and then how they're addressing it down in the physical therapy room. But, there's just a lot of like, I don't think that all physical therapy is transparent. There are, don't get me wrong, there are some really, really good physical therapists out there that really understand what they're talking about. But, and I'm not trying to trash on them, but it just wasn't for me. It just wasn't the energy I was looking for. People coming in not really wanting to do that, like, or do what we were prescribing them. Yes, it's rewarding in the sense that like when they do get done, they're able to kind of get back a part of themselves. But it's definitely not like athletics in terms of like they're coming in, they want to get it. They're working towards their goals. And for me, that's kind of like what I want because I want to supplement those people to reach their next level, unlock hidden potential, if you will. And so I would say like that's the biggest difference. That's the biggest turnoff for me. I just wanted to be in an environment that kind of filled my cup more.
Hmm. What's the sort of most challenging aspect of S&C that you found graduating and now working in the industry?
Um, I want to say money. I think that's definitely a big one for a lot of people in the field. We don't get paid the most, but in terms of like coaching, I would say I want to start by saying like I feel like I'm really lucky to have come like been raised up in a way that made me like analyze myself. There's definitely been points where like I had a little bit of ego. I feel like I'm like the top dog. Like
We
I
all
know
do.
everything.
We all do.
Right, and it's just part of the journey, I think. But I feel like it takes like a really mature person who understands the world and the demands of our field to kind of take that step back and just be humble, understand your role, um, and then figure out what needs to be done to kind of supplement that in the most effective and valuable way possible. I feel like that's definitely the hardest part. Um, Other than just like you know going in and just trying to get better every day, it's like a grind every single day. There's always an opportunity to figure out something that's going to make you do better. I don't know if you
Hmm.
hear this dog outside, but it's
I
barking
do.
crazy.
It's not.
Trying not to,
It's all
I'm
good.
trying to ignore it, but sorry about that. But every day you go in is another opportunity to figure out what you can be doing better, what went wrong, what you can change, and I feel like that itself is also one of the best parts of strength and conditioning is that it's a constant journey of growth.
Uh, I've previously spoke with B2, and he's of the same opinion as you. Obviously, both Springfield graduates, same program. And what I personally like about the program that you guys run is how intense it is in the fact of the experience aspect of it. Like
Mhm.
Springfield College places a lot of emphasis on the amount of work experience that you do. Obviously, you've got great lecturers there as well that have worked
Mhm.
in this industry and have done amazing things in this industry. How was that process from you obviously being at university or college and then having these great mentors who place such a big emphasis on the practical science of S&C and then going out in the industry and be like, yeah, this is home.
I love how you said this is home because that's exactly how it feels like. Um, Anytime I get into like a coaching spot, it feels great. It's like a second home for me. Most days I'm spending more hours at the gym than I am like at my own house. That's just kind of how it is. Um, but
It's our
definitely,
life.
yeah, dude, it's our life. But in terms of practical experience, I've heard many coaches say this, but like you can have all the knowledge in the world, but if you don't know how to communicate it or to explain it, or you don't have the confidence to go up and do it and showcase it to the athlete in terms of like teaching them or having them understand, you're not going to get anywhere. So I feel like that's why they put a huge emphasis on that actual practical experience. It's great to have the knowledge, but you can always get that. You have your whole life, your whole career to kind of accumulate knowledge, but getting hands on, getting into the weeds, being in the trenches with the athletes, that's not something that you get from reading a textbook. You got to actually go out and do it. And I feel like that's where the most growth can happen.
100%. That's why I always call it practical science because
Mhm.
science is great and you can learn a lot of methods and trials and research, whatever, but how applicable is that to
Right.
actual human beings that their moods aren't always variables that you can control? Their
Mhm.
trainings, their like sports training isn't something that you can measure all the time. So for me, it's a very big practical approach. You've probably read it, but conscious coaching, I think, is the biggest Bible that this industry I have is. I read that back in 2017, maybe 16, 17.
Mhm.
So like straight off the bat, that's why associated with the industry is like getting to know people, getting to communicate. And you've mentioned it before, like really speaking to your athletes and see what their needs are.
Mhm.
Is that something that was sort of brought to use through Adam Fry and all that stuff?
That was the first book he told me to read when I started. Um, it was it taught me a lot. I read that book a lot. I've reread it a few times. It's definitely helpful. You know what I mean? I think they put such an emphasis on building relationships, and I've definitely heard the other side of the stick where it's like you are definitely way too personable, dude. And I'm like, I get it. Don't get me wrong, I get it. We're not friends per se, but I feel like there's definitely a level of foundation that you need in order to coach somebody. Like I always say like passes of entry, the price of entry is
Mm,
learning someone's name. You know what I mean? I'm not even gonna say anything to an athlete unless I know their name. And like I've had a little bit of a talk, so like that's my price of entry. I say that all the time. I'm not gonna go up unless it's like completely dangerous, whatever they're doing. But I'm always trying to build that relationship, and I feel like wherever I've gone and I've done that, I've definitely left behind a better legacy, better impact on the athletes that I've worked with. And I think it's just like it also helps you as the coach because if you go
mm,
in and you hate talking to your athletes or like whatever, there's something going on, there's some negativity there. On the flip side, if you have great relationships with all your athletes, they come in, the first thing you do is smile because you see them, you're gonna have a great day regardless, no matter how many lifts that you have. So I'm a big guy in relationships. On the flip side, I am working on kind of being more commando. Just kind of like being that guy. But at
yeah,
heart, I'm just a personable guy. But I think there
yeah,
definitely is value on both sides.
100%. Like I've mentioned this on the podcast before, but one of the biggest things that I learned from my experience at UW was at the end where Coach Mac has his exit reviews, he was like, "Good coach, like you nailed all the points, blah 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 blah, but you have a small voice." And it's
Mm,
again what you're touching on is like having that presence to lead your athletes, command your athletes in the right
mm,
way, so that you can actually be an effective coach. For me, that
mm,
was one of the biggest things that I sort of started switching as soon as I heard Coach Max say that. I was like, okay, let's do a little bit more on focusing on my
mm,
voice and who I am and who I want to be perceived as.
mm, for sure.
In terms of what you do now as well, I also know that you have a podcast and you've got some pretty decent names on there too. Can you explain why you started that and how that sort of helped your coaching as well?
Yeah, so I mean, that was a huge period of growth for me. I was able to get some really, like you said, some decent names up on there. And honestly, it was just an opportunity to pick their brains. But, as an aspiring coach myself at that time, when I had way less experience, it was kind of a way to kind of get, like, look at the world through their eyes,
Mm,
kind of figure out what they're looking for, um, how they think in the moment, things like that. Because like as a new coach, right, unless you've done it or unless you've heard someone say it or do it, it's kind of hard to kind of like find that. And so I kind of wanted to get those people onto the podcast who are definitely crushing it in the industry. And my hope is that newer coaches can come by, listen to those podcasts, and I feel like it's a really good beginner guide in terms of like
mhm,
this is what I should be looking for. This is how I should be behaving. This is what I should be looking for in the weight room. And I don't even talk about just being in the weight room. I talk about like nutrition, talking about like philosophy, things like that. And I think, to be a good coach, you need all of that. So I kind of wanted to bring a collective experience of people, ask them questions based on their specialty, and just kind of get the best out of everybody. And then the goal is that at the end they can kind of combine everything they learn and come out on the other side as a better coach.
100%. I always say to my athletes and anyone who I've sort of helped in this industry is like, you don't know what you know until you know. And it's
Mm-hmm.
what I've learned from this podcast is like someone might do the same thing the same way you do, but their explanations to it might be different. That's
Mm-hmm.
a chance for growth as well. Because like
Mm-hmm.
you could be thinking a squat is just good for the quads, hamstrings, posterior chain, but someone was like, yeah, cool, but it's actually really fundamental for the core, that core stability, that internal pressure that you build. Like just these little, like
Mm-hmm.
different little cues can give you that much more oomph behind everything that you program from then on.
I agree. There's a million ways to skin a cat. There's a ton of reasons why to be using the same exercise, right? We can back squat for a million different reasons, right? It's all about just trying to find out what you're trying to chase and like how you can apply that exercise, that tool to kind of get what you want.
100%. What was some of the best sort of things that you learned from the podcast and how you've sort of been running it?
Definitely communication. Are you talking about like what I've learned from them or like the things that I would do differently
We'll go
or
both.
both?
I'm interested
We'll go
now.
both.
Yeah,
Okay, okay, yeah. So in terms of like what I've learned, I mean, it's a grind, to be a coach. And I'm not saying the podcast, just like as a coach itself, it's a grind. And you got to really master your craft in terms of like communication, like, because you only have so much time. And honestly, like even just something basic like nutrition, sleep, eat, hydrate, saying that rather than trying to explain to them all these macronutrients, blah, 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 get this amount, sleep this much, blah, blah, blah. It's like, it's just too much. And like they already have like so much mental load, so much stress going on in their life, especially at the D1 level, right?
mhm,
They're traveling a lot, they're competing a lot, they're practicing maybe 2 times a day, they're lifting maybe 2 times a day, and they're just doing that all year long. And so like our goal should be to kind of reduce that mental load and make it as digestible as possible. And I never really talked too much about programming. I think programming, like talking about it, there's definitely like some value, but I think ultimately, you know, at the core of it, we all program the same exact way. We all just try to find the adaptation we're looking for. And like we said before, there's a million ways to do that. And they're just trying to find the right exercise that you think would fit them based on where they're at. I think that's definitely something that is kind of apparent as well within the podcast. The only
I
person I
will
really
say
talk.
the programming is a skill that we've learned through these great coaches, but it's not something that everyone has and has nailed and has down or even understands why certain exercises go somewhere.
Mm.
I have seen some programs that a lot of coaches just throw shit at the wall and hoping it sticks. So
Yeah.
we're coming from an area where we've learned from some of the greatest minds in this industry. So I would definitely still keep up in your programming skills.
Mhm.
Um, Again, sorry for interrupting, but I do think that
No,
it
you're
will.
right. You're right. I think maybe I generalize too much. There's definitely a good handful of athletes, like you said, who throw shit at the wall and hope it sticks. You know, um, I think I think the basis of a good program is why, right? You got to have your why on everything. Um, I've been told by many
I'm
many
going to
people.
put it out there, but you, like myself, you've probably had every program that you've ever written shot on by industry leading coaches. So
Yes, sir.
we're we're coming from a place where we've had a lot of abuse from different coaches on the programs and
Mhm.
exercises that we've had.
Right, and it's nothing like, at least for me, I don't know about your experience, but for me it's not so much like it's now, like before it was definitely exercise selection. It's just like, dude, I had such a small library, but like now that I've been doing it for a lot longer, I have a wider scope. And so now it's less so about like exercise selection, but it's more like this is going to be too hard because they're dealing with this and this and that. You know what I mean? Like they're playing this game,
Really
they're having
external strength
finals.
as well.
Right, right. So you're balancing their life with the programming, along with just player load in general. And I feel like that's where things can start to get a little bit more difficult, right? Because now you're trying to manage fatigue, and I mean that's what program is about, just like managing fatigue, make sure you recover, come out stronger. But I feel like that's where people need the most experience. They need to get in and they need to actually try their programs, see what happens, see how
Mhm.
you feel, see how the athletes feel. You know, I think track and field is one of the best sports that you can do to prove whether your program is working or not, because everything's timed, everything's measured. If they mess up, you know, maybe it's on them, maybe it's on you, who knows? But like at the end of the day, you have a measurement, and that's an objective thing. There's not a lot of other sports I think where you can kind of like truly see a program come to life. Like if you see a volleyball player, yeah, they might be jumping higher, maybe they are moving a little bit better in terms of like how they need to get to the ball, but like that could just be good coaching, more effective movement on the coaching staff side. So like it's really hard to tell. There's just nothing super objective, but you know you got to test it. Julian Klaus says if you're not testing, you're guessing. You know what I mean? So I agree with that
100%.
100%.
I always have to do the program before I set it out, or it'll be
100%.
something that I've done similar or I've done in the past. I never program if I've not done it, because then
Yeah.
I don't know what aspects they're getting fatigued, what aspects aren't working.
Hmm.
If those two exercises don't go together for some reason, I need to know, and then I can make changes as I go along. But
Hmm.
the most important thing that I think every coach should do, and you nailed it there, is do your own program first and then program it.
100%. Because like, especially as a newer coach, like you have no idea. Like you have no idea what's gonna happen, right? Like you can have an idea, but you're not gonna know how it feels. You're not gonna know like in terms of like how much you are growing per week or how much you are like adapting per week. Like what type of gains you're getting out of it. Like trying your best to kind of like get as close to a numerical data point as possible, right? If you don't have that experience doing it, because if you run it through your athletes, they might get hurt, they might get trashed. It's not. It's all going to burn in hell. Like it's a complete mess. And so
100%.
like you said, try it on yourself. Even at the highest level at Louisville, I never see them not try a program before doing it. They're doing it like a few weeks before they even program it out to their athletes. So there's a ton of value in doing that, even at the highest level.
We would have the programs made for us, but we would have to do the programs the week before, so we knew what our athletes were going to go through. And that to
Mm.
me was the biggest lesson I learned at UW was you have to go through it. If it
Mhm.
sucks for them, you need to know, and you need to know exactly where it sucks to then do it. The worst thing that we
Right.
got to do was the stairs, and I don't know if you've seen UW Stadium, but that's a hell of a lot of stairs and they're steep. So
Mm.
for us, it was like, we're making them do it, let's do it. In
Mhm.
terms of the skills that you're talking about in programming, how are you hoping to carry them all over to your new roles coming up?
Mhm. I think it's like we were talking about. It's just trial and error. Like I've done them. I kind of know how it feels. I know what I'm getting out of it. But now it's time to test it on a wider, I guess you say like wider group, right? A wider population. Try to get a little bit bigger of a sample size because like you know, just because it works for me doesn't mean it's going to work for everybody. And I think a great program is a general one that gets a majority of the people in the right direction. You're not going to have everybody getting the like you're not going to be milking every last strip for every single person. That's ultimately the goal. But when you have a huge team, it's hard, it's time consuming, it's not resourceful, and so you kind of just need to be okay with getting what you can get, and you're just hoping that you can get the most that you can with what you have. And so I think that's going to be like my next step while I'm down in Fairfield is just trying to make sure that the programs are right, they are getting the majority of people in the right direction and then addressing the people who are not. And if it's not, that's a lot easier. Maybe like out of a team of 20, maybe like two or three need a little bit of a switch up to kind of get the adaptations that we need or the gains that we're looking for. I think that's just a better way to go about it than trying to get every single person on the same boat, or every single person on an individualized program rather than on the same boat, especially in terms of team chemistry in the weight room and in the logistics and everything like that. I'm a big believer that everybody should be together. Everybody should be having fun. Um, and if everybody's out kind of doing their own thing in the same weight room, it's not a great vibe.
No, I agree. It's harder with team sports and when you have a large group because you can't individualize programs. That is ideally
Mhm.
the case, but because you've got 10 to 20 athletes all at the same time, they're all playing the same sport, you can sort of get the fundamentals right.
Right.
First movements first, get the basics of it really nailed so that they can
Mhm.
then use those skills and use those strength areas to then carry over to their sport.
Mhm.
Is that a fair statement to say?
Yeah, I mean, that's how we do a needs analysis. We figure out what they need, and then from there, we are trying to kind of reverse engineer whatever they need into the weight room. Like, how are we going to get them ready for whatever they're doing out on the field, right? Every single team is different. Like a basketball team might be running gun while another team might be slow, and so it's about trying to analyze not only the sport itself, but also the team that you're working with to try to figure out what exactly they need, right? Because the run and gun style of conditioning isn't going to really be needed. It's just going to be more added player load if they are just kind of a slower team or vice versa, right? So it's about finding out what they need, executing it, getting them ready for the demands, um, and making sure that they're as ready as possible, as robust as possible for any situation they might get thrown at, especially on a field sport like soccer where things just happen, basketball, things just happen, right? Just having them be prepared for stuff like that.
What's the thing that you're looking forward to most on your upcoming role?
I'm super excited to have the opportunity to finally work with the team for a good period of time, right? As an intern, they're hopping around every like 3 months. If you're lucky, you can go a little bit longer than that. But I haven't been able to have a single team other than Ultimate Frisbee for like a year. And throughout that period with Ultimate Frisbee, I was able to have a great relationship. I knew my athletes. They knew me at a level I would say is sufficient to kind of get the job done. Having 2 years to kind of do that, it kind of just gets me excited because whatever teams I'll be working with, I know that I'll be leaving behind an impact greater than I've ever had in the field. And I'm really hoping just to kind of really positively impact their lives, whether it's through getting them strong, getting them ready for their sport, or just being like a pillar of support. Like as a coach, a lot of athletes see their coaches more than, friends, family. And so I kind of want to like step up into that position and also offer myself as support to these people. Because yes, they're athletes, but they're also people. And I think in terms of like having them perform well, it's also mental. I want them to be in the best space that they can be. I want them to be the best physically that they can be. And that's ultimately what I'm looking forward to the most. Trying my stuff or trying my program out on them, and just having that time because I think you're aware that like it's kind of hard to have like a team for a long period of time. Like
100%.
many people transfer out. some might get injured, etc. So like being able to kind of at least have the opportunity means a lot.
100%. And I think as well, like when you're dealing with people, like the way that the methods that you use to like create this buy-in and have them trust you and enough to like accept everything that you're saying and then take it on. I think that's going to be the key thing to the growth of what you're wanting to do as well. When
Mm-hmm.
I worked an internship for the Scottish Rugby Union development squads, Greg Small, who was the head coach there, he had this open door policy. That was pretty much if his office door was open, anyone was welcome to come in and
Mm-hmm.
just talk about anything, how they feel, how their course is going, whatever. They could just come in and talk about sports or their favorite team, whatever it was. But just having that in place made sure that their connection was on a deeper level, more than just you're an athlete, I'm a coach. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
He was able to get that buy-in from their trust, and they're sort of communicating the way that they feel as well. How are you sort of hoping to get this buy-in from your athletes from the get-go?
Honestly, I kind of have like a little bit of a formula. Um, it's just like with any other human connection, in my opinion, right? Like we're all people at the core of it. And so, growing up, I used to kind of throw myself at people, right? Like, just take all of me, right? But I realized that that's too much, and it's a lot better just to kind of, ease into it a
Organically let
little
that
bit. Like,
happen.
there's no need to rush. You know what I mean? I'm gonna have, even if it's just like a 3 month internship, I don't need to rush. But knowing I have 2 years, I'm definitely not gonna be rushing. I'm gonna be taking it slow. I'm gonna be easing into it. I think that there's a period of about 2 weeks to maybe a month that it takes for somebody to kind of really get adjusted to somebody, like being such a presence in their life, and I respect that. You know what I mean? I'm not going to come in the first week and the second week and trying to like shove myself down people's throats, being like, "Come respect me, come listen to me, do this, do that." If they want to, that's great. If they don't, okay, whatever. We have more time together. It's not that serious. But continuously trying to kind of ask people how they're doing, figure out if they need anything from me, get their own feedback as well, because I think that's super important. Is like, I don't, I believe that, like, yes, I had play a part in kind of running the ship, but at the same time, you know there are people in my life that have made some suggestions, and you wouldn't expect them to make a suggestion at that level, and it's really good. And so I'm super open to feedback. Even if it's bad, I'll still listen.
Mm,
So I'll be like, yeah, like I appreciate you coming up to me. Like I'll think about it, blah blah blah. But you know, trying not to be I don't want to be like a wall. I want to be like a door. I want them to just be able to walk into my life and kind of just understand me for who I am and why I coach the way I do. And I just hope that they accept that. That's also part of the reason why I'm trying to broaden my coaching ability in terms of like being able to lead a room, have more presence, use my voice better. Because I feel like I've already nailed the buying part, but at the same time, you need both qualities.
I love what you just touched on. Is like that taking criticism is really important, and as young coaches, we need sometimes to be taken down a couple pegs just to be
Oh
like,
yeah.
hey, I love the program, I love everything, but I don't like being spoken to like that. Don't shout at me. Got it. You don't want to be shouted at. Let's
Yeah.
just talk during a workout.
Hmm.
Or some athletes love to get shouted at. But it's,
Hmm.
again, going back to that conscious coaching and just making sure you know who you have in the room, how to coach
Right.
them. And
Right.
again, feedback is key. If an athlete likes you and is willing is comfortable enough to say, "Hey, coach, wasn't a fan of that workout." Cool, got it. Why?
Right.
Oh, it made my knees feel a little bit shaky and weak. Okay, good. We'll never do that again. Let's look at the movement but do it differently. Again,
Hmm.
feedback is key. I
Right.
love feedback.
Mhm. It's nice to be able to be in a position to kind of receive that feedback and be the one to make the change, because you know as an intern you're not typically doing the programming,
Mm,
but as like a head coach or as a GA, for example, or like a higher level assistant coach, right? You're going to be the one doing those changes, and you make the change, you get the feedback again, and at the end of the day, right, you're refining and you're making it better for the athlete. You're still chasing the same adaptation, in a way that's less, like taxing on the body, for example. or less taxing on their mental state. Because like let's say for example you have them doing like 10-second eccentric back squats. Do you really need to be having them do like be under the bar for 10 seconds per rep, right? Like stuff like
Mhm.
that. That's a big exaggeration, right? There's not many people doing 10-second eccentrics with a back squat, but understand that like because I wrote one time um, like moderate weight 12 reps for back squat, and they kind of like ripped me for that at Louisville because they're like, do you know how much that sucks? And I was like, yeah, I've done it, but like they're not gonna like this one week one. I'm like, gotcha, so it's like it's kind of like understanding that, you know what I mean?
100%. Speaking on eccentrics, I once saw a coach program for another coach. So he kind of should have knew a little bit better, but different story. Um, 20-second isometrics. No isometric, 20-second eccentrics.
Two
I
reps
was
right
like,
there.
that. So it was a 20-second eccentric descent on a bench press, which isn't a huge range of motion type movement. It's very small on a 20 second eccentrics.
All
Exactly. Try and do it. Try and do it. I bet you will never get a 20 seconds.
right, start counting for me, Manny.
So that with 8 kilograms, I
Like
think
that.
it was, that's very hard to do, and I don't recommend.
You said
uh,
80 kilograms?
Yeah, so it'll
Oh,
be
there's like,
160 pounds
yeah, about 160
roughly.
ish. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
give or take a couple. I mean, there may be some benefits to it. I probably should do some research on it too because it's someone's programmed it. But I was just like, yeah,
Just because
that's
you can do something doesn't mean you should. That's all I'm
there is that
saying.
too.
Just because you can
There is
doesn't mean
that
you
too.
should.
There is
Yeah.
that too. I fully agree with that. What's your PR song? I always love to get coaches'
A PR
PR
song.
songs.
Oh, snap. That's hard off the top of my head right now. You can't go wrong with Metallica. You know,
Oh, you're a heavy
Enter
guy.
Sandman. That's a good one. That's a good one. I mean, like, I'm not listening to that throughout my day, but if that comes on in the weight room, I'm getting hyped for
You're
sure.
getting pumped.
Yeah, I'm trying to honestly like when I PR, I just kind of like don't listen to music. I'm just like
Oh,
locked in
really?
with like what's going on. Yeah, like I want to just be fully focused with like what I'm doing. Like I want to feel every single thing. Um, and so like if I'm
Interesting.
really PRing, I actually don't really listen to music. If I'm casually lifting, it's usually chill though. Like it's just, just like some summer vibe songs.
Hmm.
Um,
What's
if
your
I
what's
wanted
your
to want to get a little
conditioning
more
song?
energy, like conditioning, whatever makes the pain go away,
Classic.
dude. Whatever makes the pain go away. No, normally something like a little bit slower. Like I find that when I condition and like I am doing like music that's like faster RPMs or BPMs, like rap, something that's
Mm.
like aggressive, it gets me it kind of gets my heart rate going up a little bit. But like I don't want that. I want to kind of keep my heart rate a little bit lower, because it's already getting high. I don't want to get like maxed out just off of like
Mm.
adrenaline or whatever. So I try to keep the vibes as chill as possible with conditioning, even though the sessions themselves are not chill.
So
Yeah,
I I love to ask coaches that. A lot of strength coaches are more metal, which is I think it's slowly changing, slowly, very slowly. What would be some advice that you'd give new strength coaches or coaches just starting out that you
hmm.
kind of wish that you had back then?
First thing, read conscious coaching. That's for sure.
I
Apply it.
suppose
Doesn't even take that long. It's a super
no.
short read. That's the first thing though. Read that book, apply it. Find the space to apply it. But I think in terms of just like generally, what's going to kind of help not athlete, sorry, help a coach have the most growth throughout their career is trying to figure out a way to say this like a little bit eloquently. You're gonna mess up for sure.
Yeah.
You're gonna make a ton of mistakes, and like that's fine. But you gotta be reflecting. Like I
Hmm.
said before, every single lift is an opportunity to get better, especially if you're surrounded by other coaches. Steal everything and then find a way to make it your own. There's so much knowledge out there, and there's so many ways to do one thing, and don't put yourself in a box. Like exercise is freedom in a sense because you can almost do anything that you want because there's so many ways to get what you want, And so, sure, you might have like a few exercises where you're like, this is a must, but I definitely recommend straying away from that mindset
Mhm.
and kind of liberating yourself a little bit more. It's going to be way more fun. Don't take yourself too seriously. Don't take the job super seriously. You gotta take it seriously. You have a job to do, but also don't like kill yourself over it. You know what I mean? Like, I definitely was at a point where that's like all I did. I still do it. I love it, but that's not for everybody. Um,
Mhm.
you know, and so kind of like understand who you are and try to just like remember to fill your own cup because like every day we are filling up the cups of others, whether it's athletes or like other staff. But unless the weight room does it for you, like it does
Mhm.
for me, you know, like you're gonna have to find other ways to kind of like recharge or refuel because you know, just like in conscious coaching, it's about being consistent, right? Like if you come in one day super high energy and the next day you're just depressed because you didn't refill your cup, it's not a good look, dude. It's not a good look. And
100%.
so like you got to stay on that level. You got to be nice and even throughout the whole semester, the whole year, throughout your whole tenure. Just kind of like aim to be that guy that people can go to and ask questions and do hopefully have the answers for.
100%. I like what you said about the exercise element of it. I always say that you're as limited as your imagination. Just because
Mm-hmm.
you don't have a piece of equipment or a specific machine or any type of technology doesn't mean that you still can't do it. Like
Right.
I
You
once
find a way, man.
used a sled. I needed a sled, and I used those box step ups, sort of
Mm-hmm. You put a weight on top of the box and you pushed it.
and then
Genius.
no, and then I
Exactly.
had like a battle rope, tied it to a couple kettlebells, threw the kettlebells in, and just used it as a pull. Like that's you do that. Like
There you
you're as
go.
limited as your imagination.
Right. Like there's always a way. Like there's always a way to get what you want. And now I'm not even talking about adaptation. I'm talking about like exercise, right? So many people like think about like regressions, like an athlete's injured, and then so many coaches are so quick to scrap it. But if you really just like think about it, you understand movement, you understand what you're going for, you can like you can basically salvage that whole thing. Like
Mhm.
it doesn't really matter. Like unless they're just completely immobilized, like or they're unable to move per
100%,
doctor's recommendations, like there is definitely a way to salvage it. 100%. I think that's one of my
100%.
biggest pet peeves is when coaches scrap stuff because of an inconvenience. Like, oh, the equipment's being used. Figure something out, right? Like, there's always another way to do it. If you don't got med balls, maybe use bands. Like, just find a way. Um, it's gonna make you better. It's gonna make them respect you more, in my opinion.
The
Um,
best
just
example of this I've heard is Coach Mack coached the Chinese Olympic team, and or he was in China coaching, and because of the language barrier,
mm,
he asked for a specific gym equipment, but they heard take that equipment out and replace it by something else. So for
oh
like a whole week or 2 weeks, they didn't have any equipment at all. So he was like, what do you do in that situation? We're like, God knows, what do you do in that situation? He was like, manual, manual weight.
manual
So
resistance. 100%.
exactly using everyone's body weights against that, using pressure, doing something
Mm.
to still get those adaptations and still get those movements through.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I was really lucky. I don't know if you know Coach Aloy, but he was at Springfield College. He's now at the University of Albany, working with track and field. But I remember one time we had a baseball lift outside, and I think Coach Fi is a huge constraint based guy, coaching guy, and we had a trolley, like a small like trolley thing to pull stuff. We had maybe some kettlebells in there, some bands. He had some cones, and that's basically it. You know, So that was the first time I got exposed to like manual resistance, though, like
Mm.
truly. Um, and we were just using so many things. Hold on, sorry, my laptop's about to die in a second.
Very good.
Just make sure the thing's plugged in. Oh God. Oh, sorry, I thought it was plugged in the whole time. Turns out it wasn't.
Good. Don't worry.
Um, but yeah, so that was the first time I got exposed to manual resistance, and I was like, oh my God, even with nothing, you can do something. You know what I mean? And
100%.
like ever since then, like that's why I feel like there's always a way. Like even if you have no equipment, you can still get a great lift in if you have another person. Like Make
100%.
add
All you
more
need is a
people, even
towel.
better, right?
100%.
Towel. You don't even need a towel. You can just
Yeah.
use hands. It's you don't need anything. It's great. That's one thing I love about manual resistance is you can pull it out anywhere, anytime. Doesn't matter where you're at, and
And this sucks.
it's just so
It
versatile.
sucks.
It's hard. It's hard, but I think there's like a brotherhood aspect of that in terms of the
Mhm.
struggle because you're using another person's weight. You're essentially fighting with this other person, but ultimately still striving towards the same goal. Um, and I think there's like a terms like camaraderie in that. There's like
Mhm.
we're doing this together. We're struggling together. Let's just go as hard as we can. And so I'm a big fan of manual resistance for that reason. Big fan of partner exercises, um, and I think it just
Builds that
helps
culture as
all together.
well. It builds
Mm,
that culture as well where they're
right.
they're collectively trying to make the workout suck as much as possible for the other guy, but in a friendly way, which is
Mm,
awesome.
yeah. It's not for everybody. It's not for every
No,
team, right? But you find those ones that want to get after it. Like you're gonna get another level. You're gonna get another level out of them for sure.
100%. Thank you so much for coming on, James. If you
Mhm.
give everyone, um, if you let everyone know where they can contact you and sort of get to follow
Mhm.
along with your journey as well.
Yeah, you can find me on Instagram at Coach Pishkin. There it is. Yeah, you can shoot me a DM if you want to do anything. If you want to chat, ask questions, feel free. I'm always willing to try to help other people. So yeah, you can find me over there. Yeah, thank you very much, Manny.
That's all good.